welcome to another episode of IT Pro TV. I'm your host, Mike Roderick, and with me today is Mr. Sean Oriano. How are you, Sean?
I am doing pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. We got another exciting episode of our Kali Linux series coming your way. This is a continuation. We're going to be talking more about some of the tools we have available within Kali to use against web servers. We're trying to do a penetration test against web servers or web applications. So if you missed the other part, jump back in the library. You'll see there's actually a part 1, part 2. We're on part 3 of our web server tools. So Sean, where do we start with this one? I know we've already got all the basics down, so we're just going to dive right into some of these tools.
Yeah, we're going to move into yet another tool that is going to do just something else for us. And this tool we're going to find when we go under our, and I've got this up on my screen here for you, and we can just go full screen on this one to make sure you got it. What I have here is I'm going to go under the Kali Linux web applications section. And what we're going to do is when we go through this, we are going to, where is it, right down here under web vulnerability, you're going to see on this one Nikto. Nikto is a command line utility that you can see is going to be used specifically to test for vulnerabilities in a website / web application, depending on how you configure it. This actually is a kind of a cousin, if you will, to one on the Windows side called Wikto, and that one, if you remember that one was a nice kind of GUI application, and it had different tabs in it. It could do Google hacks and all sorts of stuff. It's by no means a bad application. It just does some other things, and it does some of the stuff that this one does. There's some crossover between the two, but there are some things that are different. So if you've seen that one, they're very close, but there are some changes between the two. So in any case, this one probably fits more in the category of web vulnerability than Wikto does. But hey, we could argue that, and we're not, but we could argue that. So anyway, so what I've done is I have already run a scan for us with Wikto, and I went ahead and used USA Today again as the site. This just did a quick, really easy sweep of it. If you look at the command line for this one, the command line for it, all I did was I just did Nikto-H and said just look at that. And so I'm finding a little more than just a little bit more than Google would. If Google went through and looked at all the content, it's just reading some stuff in the actual HTML code and saying, there you go. I mean, so we're not really doing that much more than a basic reconnaissance and just a little bit of look at what we found there. You can go much deeper than this. If I was to go over to my other window here and do Wikto help, well, we should be able to.
Nikto.
Or Nikto. Yeah. All right. It's Friday.
It's all the jumping back and forth between Windows and Linux,
So in any case, what I've got here is you can see it's got a fair amount of options in it. So I could have really fine-tuned this if I wanted to. There's really no reason for me to do that because I wasn't what I was looking for to do here, and I don't want to be aggressive with their site. I just want to do a really cursory look to generate some results to show you what they look like. Once you have a site that you've got, more of a blank check to do what you want with it, then hey, by all means, go ahead and do that. But this one, yeah, I just did a really cursory look at it, and that's all the -H does for us. But you can see it's got it's got plenty of other things that you can do if you really want to tweak that. You can see we have SSL options in there, and there's different types of plugins that we can do with this thing to really get some results. All right, so what I've got is there's my results out of Nikto. I would just dump this to a file normally. I didn't do that here. I just went ahead and just displayed on screen so we can kind of glance through it together. And we're not going to focus, ad nauseum on every line in there. There's really no need for that. But we are just going to kind of take a quick glance to see what it's retrieving. So you can see that, okay, got the target, and then boom, it went right through. There's the IP, there's the host name, the port, when it started the scan. Okay, so, and this did, by the way, during the break, as soon as we went to break, I went ahead and typed that in, enter, and I was sitting over there. It finished up just about a minute or two before we came back. So give you kind of an idea of the performance of this.
For those of you that are watching the recording, we took about a 15-minute break there, I think.
Yeah,
Something
somewhere
like
in there. Yeah.
So,
And those of you that are watching the recording, why aren't you watching it live? Everyone else made it. All right. So anyway, but what we have is you can see the server. That's there we go. There's kind of a little something a little different than we'd expect. We see Nginx. Okay, so they're running something other than Apache and IIS.
So there is another web server application. You weren't lying to us. I didn't know.
Yeah, it's another one. You don't see it. You don't see it a ton, but you do see it, and occasionally just pokes its head out. So I would have been more. I would have been more surprised if it had something like Netscape sitting up there. Like it's like, well, this thing's broken. I'm never using it again. So you can see, in here it tells me the server. Click jacking. It doesn't have any protection against that, where it can do redirects and stuff and nonsense like that. Apparently, they've done some tweaks to their to their headers. They've added some stuff to it that makes us not really recognize it. But hey, no big deal. But you keep going through this, and you can see that they've done some some various things in here. I kind of like when you get down here, it says server banner has changed from this to Akamai, or I always screw up on Akamai. We're going to go with that, okay? But I'm going to go with Akamai Ghost. Who knows? They said they changed the server banner from that. That could indicate that they've just changed their hosting solution. Maybe they've moved it someplace, or they've done a they've consciously made some edit there, and we're not really sure why. Maybe they did move it from one place to another. Who knows? But they've picked that up, and they've indicated there's a change there. But we're just going through results. We're seeing just all sorts of little things in here, but it hasn't gone all that deep. This is just kind of like a quick scrape of the surface of the website, and that's really it. So we have a big text list here. Done. Look at the scan time, 736 seconds. That's like 3 hours. I don't know. So, so we've so it's done. It's done a reasonable amount here, and then it's given us some information at the end that may be helpful to us. There's some it says the security focus site and some other things that may be may be something that we want to refer to for more information on some of these things, but not a ton. Not a ton of stuff, but you can see what it can actually do. But that's Nikto, simple command line vulnerability scanner. There are ones that do way more than this, and this one can do way more than this. It's just that we chose not to do that. But I don't think it's a bad one. I mean, it's very lightweight. It does a decent job for what it is, and so you might very well go ahead and check it out. I've done different options, everything on here, and got some pretty good results off of it. You'll notice that this one didn't give us more results, not just because I only set the H switch, but you'll also notice when you get down towards the bottom there, it mentioned some comments about limits being reached. So there was a certain point where it said, okay, you didn't actually code any, you didn't tell us to override any of the default limits, so we're just going to cut it so the scan doesn't go any further. And a lot of them will do that because if the scanner gets too aggressive and gets too deep and retrieves too many files, you're gonna wreak havoc on the target, and you're going to have a really messy scan. So, and you may have, and you're probably going to end up with more stuff than you need. Right. So they try to set it conservatively, and if you want to kind of bust out of that and make it more aggressive, you can. So anyway, so that is what we have here for working with Wikto. As far as the other vulnerability scanners we have in there, just kind of go through and mention these. the vulnerability scanners. You can see that we do have a bunch of other ones sitting on here. We've got we can go full screen on this for you. You can see we have a bunch of other ones that are residing out there. I mean, there is Vega, again, and there's some other ones. There's a SQL Server one. There is OWASP. In case you haven't ever taken a look at this one, this is another application for doing scans of a website. So this one's going ahead. This one's again, got its own GUI, everything for it. This is what replaced, and I'm starting this up just to kind of give you an idea. This is what replaced that Peros proxy, and so and Peros proxy they just replaced it because it was kind of reaching the end of its life. You couldn't really upgrade it too much anymore, and it was showing its age. And instead of just going through and ripping it to pieces and saying, well, we're going to do this, this, and this, and kludging something together, they said, yeah, we'll just kind of go through and do something else that gets the results that we want. So anyway, what I'm going to do is I am going to go ahead and start this starts this thing up. So there is OWASP doing its thing. I'll say since it just started, I'll let check for any updates. So if it needs to check if there's any new problems that it wants to add to the database, it's got that. And you can see it. This one's pretty easy to start up. All we have to do is for a URL. We just put we put in the URL of whatever site we want to check, and so I'll just go ahead and drop I'll drop the same one I've been doing in here because I'm not going to do anything really aggressive with this at all. So I can put that in there, see if there's anything else I want to add in, and you can configure it a lot more than what I've got here. Once I've done that, I can click my button for a tag, and now what's going to happen is it's going through. You can see it says it's spidering the content, so it's reading that site. It's just going to build me a map of it and give me some basic ideas of vulnerabilities, and that's it. And so once we see that, we can see if we want to go any further with it, or if we're good with what we have. I would tell you when you're looking at these tools, the thing you want to kind of keep in mind when you run any of these is don't just all of a sudden decide that that this isn't going to be enough information. So if I just start this up, don't just assume, oh well, this isn't going to be nearly enough information for me to make a good judgment on it. I would consider starting with the conservative settings and then see what that gives you, and see if you really do need to ratchet it up higher, or if it's something that you can just leave right at those default settings for how many files and how long it's going to take. Because what you don't want to do is you don't want to say, well, it's only retrieving the first 20 results or something, saying that's not enough. I want the first 200. You don't know what that's going to do. Unless you've really tested that thoroughly, you don't know what that's going to do, and that could cause the thing to snowball out of control very quickly. I've seen it happen with people who are just like, just go bigger, go large on this one. It's like, no, relax, start and kind of work your way up. It's a smart way to do it. So so it's why it's doing its whole deal. You can see down at the bottom there's that little progress bar, and you can see it's we've been talking here for a few moments. I hadn't really moved that much. It's going kind of slow here. This is a pretty decent sized site. I can go ahead and stop that, but it's a pretty decent sized site. What we have down here at the bottom, I can just go ahead and drag this up here. I think I could drag that up. Okay, it's not letting me drag it up, but all right. So you can see that we've got a bunch of tabs down here that we can look at our different parts of our scan, such as they are. Down here I can see what it actually scanned. Looks like it's still stopping. I was trying to switch over to the history tab, but it's still kind of stopping and backing out of the scan, which can happen if it starts a process. It can actually say when it's starting that process, it can say, okay, I can't just kill it right now. I have to complete that scan. That thread's still running, so
stops launching any new threads, but it's got to finish what it started there.
Yeah, it's already in the middle of that transaction, so it says, yeah, I heard you, but I can't just go ahead and terminate this right now. So we'll be sitting here for a while if we do that. But I'll let that one just go ahead and start, and since it's still doing that, I'll let it terminate its whole deal. But this is the one, like I said, if you come down to any documentation that says Peros Proxy, just replace Peros Proxy with this instead. And the reason why I make a big deal about that is you'll see a lot of documentation that pertains to the CEH that says Peros Proxy, Peros Proxy, Peros Proxy. I even in my book made a mention of it, but I also put a little box after it says, by the way, that's basically deprecated. That's out of date. It says, EC Council wants you to know about it, but fine, you have been briefed. But OWASP is what the preferred one the preferred tool is now. So don't use that in your pen tests anymore unless you got a real good reason. Don't use that. Go with OWASP to use all its stuff, because that's the one that's more capable. That's the one that's been kept up to date. That's the one that's going to get you what you need to.
Nice.
So just FYI, when you see those two, is that you generally just replace Peros with OWASP, and you're ready to go.
Good.
Yeah, it's still going. It's still stopping that. So wow, that's an impressive little deal there. So any case, so yeah, it's still terminating that, but I don't really need to go in and show you the other stuff in there, but this kind of gives you an idea what this one can do. You can tweak the heck out of that scan if you really wanted to. This thing generates detailed reports on things for you if you want it. It will just do all of that, which is really nice. So that is OWASP, and by the way, you can get this for Windows. If you Google OWASP, you'll go to their site, and they have it on there too, and they have a whole wiki up there too that talks about different stuff, and they keep this pretty much up to date. Notice how when I started this up, it said, "Do you want to look for updates?" Yeah, they keep the thing updated, so they will always have, or hopefully always have, the latest and greatest, as much as they can have the latest and greatest in there for you to be ready and use.
Always good.
Yeah, that's what you want to have. The stuff changes pretty rapidly, and then just to make reference to these other ones. I mean, yeah, there's your other list of tools. If you want to try these ones out, like I said, here's the Burp Suite. The Burp Suite. I'll bring this up just briefly to kind of show you what's going on and what's doing here with this. The Burp Suite, what's really neat about it is that the experience and functionality between this and Windows is going to be exactly the same, because this whole Burp Suite is written in Java. So you can literally take this thing right off of Windows and drop it onto Linux or vice versa. It will work exactly the same.
Nice.
You don't need anything. You don't need anything new except just to have a Java loaded on your box. So the Burp Suite has started. It's sitting there. My system must be getting angry at me. You can see all sorts of nonsense going on. All right, so there's your Burp Suite. What Burp Suite has is, when you get down to this whole thing, you're gonna see that it's usually configured for you when you go through all this whole deal. It's usually already configured. The way you check is when you go run Burp Suite, you will go under this proxy tab, and you will see options. And what you're looking for is you're going to see a proxy, and you can check this box in. You can say it's supposed to be running on this IP address, which you recognize as your loopback, in port 8080. The way you use that is and you can change that if you want, but 127 is where you are. I mean, that's where it's residing, so that makes sense. The 8080, if that port doesn't work for you, you can change it to something else. But what you do is you're gonna go in and open up your browser, and when you go into your browser, you will go over to whatever browser you're using. This isn't just limited to Iceweasel or anything else. This can literally work with any browser out there. You just have to go into the preferences for the browser, and wherever the settings are to change your proxy, you will go in there and punch in, hey, this is the proxy you want to use, and you'll say, okay, well, there's 127. It's gonna .0.0.0 and port 8080. Make sure it's going to use it for all protocols. So no matter what you do, you want it to be routed through there. And once we've got that, the thing I had with Iceweasel, it may be in yours and your browser too, is it said no proxy for. When I went here earlier, the no proxy for actually had 127 and then semicolon localhost. And if you don't take that out of there, what's going to happen is it won't use the proxy, and therefore Burp Suite will do nothing because you're bypassing it and going out anyway. So you got to take that out and say, for every protocol, use the loopback, okay, or you use Burp Suite by doing this. So once we're done with that, so I've got the proxy IP and the port number, I hit OK, close out of this. What should be happening now at this point is I should be able to just go over here and type in, like I'll do, IT Pro. I'll do, our website here. And what I should see, if everything's working, the way it's supposed to, should actually see it doesn't show my proxy running on there right now. But what will happen is that as traffic's going back and forth, you will actually see the headers show up in here. And so it's not a big deal. The proxy is, and I configured the proxy. I just didn't turn it on. But what will happen under typical situations, under options where it says running, you should just have that. If I go over here, it should be, where is it? Not turning it on right now, so it looks okay. But anyway, but it should have, when I check this in, what will happen is, like I said, every intercept will show stuff going back from this client out to the server and from the server back. And what you'll have to do is when you make a request from the browser out, every request that goes, or anything that goes either way, you'll have to say, okay, go ahead, allow, or reject it. And reject it will literally drop it, so that will never go back to whatever side was supposed to receive it. And you can even go down to that bottom part and even edit those responses to get a different result. If you know what you're doing, you can edit those and get all sorts of stuff to happen. For developers, that can be just a really awesome thing to have. For what we do, that can give us inside information on how the application's working on the side of the house that we don't normally see. We don't see those headers going back and forth unless we specifically look for them. And so this will allow you to view them. And you can go ahead at any point, you're not using this, just go ahead and go click and turn the thing off, and you're done. And so you can leave your browser configured for it. If you turn intercept off, it'll still proxy everything through Burp Suite, but it won't intercept anything anymore unless you tell it.
So tools like this, Burp Suite, OWASP, you're basically running your own proxy on your own machine and then pointing your browser to that proxy and then going out to the web, and it's just giving you a chance, because that proxy obviously gets all that traffic, gives you a chance to intercept, analyze, or modify.
Exactly.
Nice.
That's exactly what it's going to do for you. And you can see that this has a ton of other functionality into it. We haven't, and we don't have a reason to really get into that right now, but there's a bunch of other things we have in here. So this is a very, very capable product, and it's free. Nice. So you've got that one ready to use for you as well. So there's two of the big vulnerability scanners that you can get into and really use. Like I said, there's plenty of other ones on there if you really want to go ahead and go to town and try these other things. I know Burp Suite, it tends to be one that's it tends to be one of the more popular ones, as does OWASP. A lot of people do like OWASP because it's able to check for a lot of the new vulnerabilities against that web-based environment. There's other vulnerability scanners for sure that also are good at doing vulnerabilities, but those are more one-size-fits-all. This is specifically done for that web environment.
Yeah, and like with any vulnerability scanner, web vulnerability scanner, OS vulnerability scanner, it really comes down to making sure that they keep their database up to date.
Yeah.
I mean, that with an out-of-date database, it's not really going to help me too much.
Yeah, it just won't. It'll just start checking for things, and it'll do great at those things, but
Right.
the new stuff, no, it won't check for.
And those are old problems that have probably been patched against. I need to test against the new stuff, the stuff that's coming out yesterday and tomorrow and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Very good. All right. Well, Sean, tell you that's a lot of good information. Again, just more tools we can use to take a look at our web servers and our web applications that are running on those web servers, looking for vulnerabilities, trying to find out if there's any way that bad guys can take advantage of those. So, anything else we want to throw in on this episode?
Hey, go ahead and try. Go ahead and get cracking on these. Try it out and see what you get.
Yeah, fire up some of those VMs that you can download that have known vulnerabilities. Set up your own web server at your house in a VM and fire these tools up and start practicing with them. Get familiar with how they work and which ones give you the information you need. You'll probably need more than one to get everything that you want. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, time for us to wrap this episode up. We want to thank everybody for tuning in and watching. Signing off for IT Pro TV, I'm Mike Roderick.
And I'm Sean Ariano.
And we'll see you next time.